Paul, how are you?
I'm good, Roy. How are you? Hello, everyone.
By the way, this whole setup's changed, by the way.
I like it.
You know, we are adjusting for capacity. So, but for the meantime, it's just Paul here and myself to address the last few days of AI news. Some crazy things, some stifling things in my mind. But yeah, it's very, very interesting what's happening. So, if we dive straight in,
As we always do.
just a light subject one. So, Elon Musk warns AI could cause civilization destruction even as he invests in it. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I like how it describes it as it's, oh yeah, but there's two parts to that interview that I really like, and it's Tucker Carlson that's doing this interview, and he's like, but break it down, or like, what is it? What do you mean? What's the dangers? Like, just break it down. To the lay person, what is it? A few times, and then Elon just comes out and goes, well, I'm talking about the total utter destruction of civilization. Us humans, I'm a speciesist. Speciesist. I can't say it. Speciesist. And it's like,
context.
okay.
Oh, just as a context, that's what Larry Page accused Elon of saying. Accused Elon of being way back in the early days.
Yeah, because Elon is basically, as he recounts this story to Tucker Carlson, that he has a concern that AI safety isn't being taken into consideration, that there really needs to be a more framework, we talk about regulation. I'm sure the conversation didn't start off with regulation back then, but it was around being mindful of the human civilization and its utter destruction when we're in a position, or people are in a position of creating AI. Which then, of course, turned into why do we need to worry about this? And Elon's like, are you kidding me? And then that's when he got called a speciesist, and which he agrees. He goes, yes, I would like to remain, human civilization to remain. So I get his point. But I believe the counter to that argument is, but if, I guess, if I'm thinking about it from Darwinism, then the strongest and the fittest will propagate its genes and survive. And therefore, if we're not the strongest and not the fittest, then we won't survive. So, yes.
You could also look at it from the point of view of the Fermi paradox and the great filter. And that is, why are we not detecting other intelligent civilizations out there? And could it be because with the great filter, once you reach a certain point, you just puff yourself out of existence, and maybe that is a barrier that only a very few select civilizations actually pass?
I got a problem with the Fermi paradox from the point of view that it assumes that as you become an advanced technological civilization, that you want to reach out and, we seem to be explorers, therefore there might be other civilizations that are of that ilk, and therefore they're going to be explorers. But we assume that the way they're going to contact us and communicate with us is via the same ways that we communicate and contact now. I'm just thinking 200 years ago, we weren't communicating with social media or via social media. Therefore, take now another 200 years into the future, what will communication look like? And what we're trying to assume that these advanced civilizations are going to send radio signals?
What else is there to send?
I don't know.
Electromagnetic spectrum, you've got light. gravity. I mean, there's not much else. I mean, neutrinos are just
Well, okay. This is a bit far out there. I'm going to get slaughtered on your channel for this, but there's a couple of astronomers in the Ukraine, and probably not the best place to be right now to be astronomers. But anyway, they're in the Ukraine at the moment, and they've detected. Well, they're currently doing experiments in near-Earth objects and detecting unusual objects in our atmosphere and just slightly out of our atmosphere that are absent of light, right? An absence of light. So they're using. I have to go back. Give me time. Let me read the papers, and I'll read up on it because I cannot recall. It's so late here in Sydney when we're filming this right now. It's almost midnight. So, but if you are asking me what would communication look like with an advanced civilization, maybe if we're talking about electromagnetic spectrum, maybe it's an absence of electromagnetic spectrum in a particular spectrum.
I see what you mean, because I was going to say, before you mentioned that, I was going to say that a sufficiently advanced civilization, well, even forget about a sufficiently advanced civilization, our civilization, when we communicate with each other, even the communication from our cell towers, you've got layers of encryption. We've now moved to digital. So there's now no longer analog, AM, FM fluctuations. It's very discrete, low powered, and in many cases it's encrypted. And I'm sure that encryption is going to evolve to the point perhaps where you wouldn't even be able to detect a signal. There wouldn't even be a carrier.
Correct.
It would blend in with the background just for the sake of not being so obvious. Because if there's an obvious signal, then it could be tracked. It could be, we don't know what type of problems we'll have to avoid in the future. Perhaps communication would have to be very clandestine and very, very low key and not obvious.
Yeah, maybe it is a hostile universe out there, right? And therefore, silence is golden. You want to get to you want to propagate your species, and you want to get to a certain type of civilization, then you would want to maybe be quiet.
So if those requirements end up becoming major requirements even within communication in our own civilization, then maybe that's why when we look out in the big black blue yonder, whatever you want to call it, we don't see anything because the time period is so thin compared to the amount of time that's passed, and secondly, just by the very nature of being in an intelligent civilization, their communications would probably be very discreet anyway.
Yeah, and as you're talking about that, and sorry for those, my brother used to have a poster on his wall. As I used to walk in his room, it used to be on the right-hand side. We used to have a very small room. We all had very small bedrooms. And it was on his wall on the right. And I remember very clearly, and it's got a hunter, and he's standing over a lion, and he just shot it. And it's a cartoon, right? It's not an actual image. Mm-hmm. And it says, once was a lion, and he was very proud. He was very sophisticated. He showed off, and he was so strong. He took down a bull one day with his own claws and ate all the bull. And he was so proud that he roared his mighty roar. And a hunter heard him and shot him dead. And the moral of the story on the bottom of the poster is, when you're full of bull, keep your mouth shut. So it just, and I know it's not exactly what we're talking about, but the point is the same. You start broadcasting loud enough, there may be someone out there that potentially sees you as a trophy and might come to harm.
Yeah. And the whole thing about, I mean, when we look at this curve that we're on, it looks like the world will look really, really, really different in a very short time. I mean,
exponential an exponential?
I mean, I was watching with my kids the film Armageddon just today.
Wait, with Bruce Willis?
Yes.
I love that movie,
It's a great movie.
especially when
I connected with it as a dad for the first time. It's great, and but the thing is the whole. I mean, it does feel very dated in terms of technology. Simply because we've even just in that short period of time since the movie was made. Where am I going with this? It's just, it's
you
like
connected with the kids.
yeah, connected with the kids. That's the most important thing. But the thing is, I've been spending a lot of time as we all have thinking of the future and how the future is going to be potentially like, and it's just radically different, so radically different from where we are now. And yeah, and it's just because it'll compound itself as it moves forward. A lot of the sci-fi that I grew up with, I mean, it doesn't really, it pales in comparison. So,
Can I ask you a question?
yeah,
Are you seeing it as radically different in a positive way, radically different in a negative way, or just radically different and you haven't really given it thought as to whether positive or negative?
I want to see it radically different in a good way. The dark side of my brain pulls me into these terrible spirals of dystopia, and I quickly snap myself out of it and go, oh, hope that doesn't happen, and get back to what I was doing. But it's like just today, I may have gone down that rabbit hole about 6 times, 7, 8 times, and through the course of the day, after reading articles like the articles that we're talking about now. I would read the article. I wouldn't even get to the end of the article because I would have started thinking about what does this mean potentially. As you said, Elon Musk warns AI. This was about his BBC interview, I think, but it's still he's talking about the same thing. It's the civilization level destruction caused by our poor mismanagement of this emerging technology because we just want to be the first out of the gates. I mean, we talked about it last time. We talked about how, if we aren't careful, if we are just trying to one-up each other in this whole race to get the next AI out, we could unleash the beast onto our unprepared civilization.
Yeah, Elon made a really good point. He talks about, and I think we did this last show or 2 shows ago, regulation. He calls for the need of regulation. Yeah, I think he kind of understands that stopping is not going to happen. Moratorium on this is not going to happen. Therefore, we need to start implementing regulations. And he talks about this too, right? Regulations typically only happen once something unsafe has occurred and has resulted in loss of life, catastrophic loss of life. Seat belts, cars, I think speed limits, etc. You see with the invention of a car, slowly regulations sort of crept in once people started realizing, oh, we can actually minimize the number of deaths on the road. And he's at that point where he goes, but this goes so fast, it goes AI speed, not human speed, that if we start implementing regulations after the fact that something's gone wrong, it's already too late. And I kind of get his point on that as a safety person, right? Because my background, one of the backgrounds is safety. Completely understand that.
So, like, as I was just driving home from dinner with the kids, and there was some cars, trying to one up each other going down the road, and that triggered a thought in my mind of the AI arms race. And I imagined, where will, like, let's say just in that example, if AIs were able to drive cars, and they got to a point where, a a human driver would not be able to navigate against an AI driver. You know what I mean? It's like there's just no comparison,
Yeah.
and it's hard to reflect. I mean, I reflect a lot.
But to me, and this is where I go, okay, I get the pessimistic view, but I'm generally a pretty positive person. I try really hard
Yeah.
to look at the positive, and even in the most extreme circumstances, fatalities, whatever, I try and look for the positives. And I still catch myself thinking about it positively. Okay, so the AI wouldn't it be wonderful if I actually had AI driving every single vehicle and humans did not drive anymore? Because if they are as more advanced than us and able to do the calculations better than us and be able to talk to one another over miles of distances, as opposed to us being insulated and not really aware of what the next driver is thinking and doing, right? Remember, there's all these other variables that we can't control as humans, but a machine that can talk wirelessly to other machines can, and therefore has the ability to not only coordinate. So would there actually be a need for traffic lights anymore? Would we actually have to stop the vehicle anymore? It might slow down, but it won't actually have to stop. It could actually time itself so that every vehicle is in motion and at an optimal speed to
Yes.
arrive at an optimal time.
So you could, I mean, I did dream about this when I was a younger, of an intersection where the cars would space themselves out appropriately. So by the time they got to the intersection, they would just,
It's exactly what I'm thinking in my head. Exactly.
yeah. But that,
Within inches of other vehicles, but still, like ballet,
yeah.
timed.
And then you would have to, and if there was a human driver who may still have the right to be on the road, everyone would have to baby that human driver as the driver made his way around.
It's like the toddler that wants to walk across the road, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, put all the safety pads on them, and then, okay, now coddle them through this process. Oh, they fell over. Okay, help them back up. No, don't cry, don't cry.
Yeah, and it's thinking, when you go to a restaurant, you'll get just the best 5-star food because all the AI robots would be trained by the best chefs, or would have downloaded the best chefs' weights and training data, and they would be able to make the best souffle, the best margarita, the best,
With the ingredients available, right? Scan ingredients. Okay, I can't do souffle right now, but I can do this.
like everyone would just be spoiled. We would be spoiled. Which
Yeah.
isn't, compared to what it was 3 generations ago, with people dying on the streets, slavery, and using wind to go across the oceans. Come a long way.
Yeah, we have. As long as we don't create something that destroys us.
Yeah, so back to what we were saying before about civilizations out there. I mean, this could be a very, very, very brief time of ramping up to an incredible level of technology. So, I mean, we've only been technologically advanced for a few hundred years, say. I mean, stuff like, this microphone, television screens, talking like this, broadcasting stuff. I mean, that's great. It's only been around for a very short time. But maybe this is always the way it goes. This is the stepping stones towards an eventuality of some sort. And the curves are perhaps very, very, very brief on a evolutionary timescale. So perhaps we never see these civilizations out there because these blips on the radar are so brief and so they'll only happen for a short amount of time, and then they're gone again. All the communication becomes stealth again for security reasons or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's my that's what I'm trying to say, that we are assuming that the current level that we're at is the way people communicate. And my predisposition is I don't think any civilization that is at the current level that we are at is at the point where they're going to be able to reach us with that same technology. Therefore, we're looking for technology. We have to be looking for a civilization that is far beyond that point to be able to get to us or to be able to communicate with us. And we have no imagination to be able to foresee what is that communication, and therefore what are we looking for. I get it. You got to look anyway. But the point is, are we looking with the right technology? Are we looking with the right set of instruments? Are we using the right sensors to be able to determine that, oh yeah, there is a civilization out there? I don't think we are.
Okay. Okay, we're back.
We are back after a little break.
Tiny little break now, yes. So, should AI be open sourced?
Argument for, argument against.
What are the arguments for open sourcing AI?
Argument for is that it's transparent, that there is an ability to see what is actually being done. And if we're talking about benefits to humanity, there's an ability for all of humanity to benefit immediately, as opposed to it being controlled for profit, manipulated, slowly released, you know, all that sort of lovely stuff that you see when marketing execs get involved.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
What do you think of nuclear weapons?
Weapons is the negative of the technology. So what I think of the technology of nuke power, or the ability to harness nuclear energy, I think it's a wonderful thing.
Well, not just nuclear energy, say nuclear weapons. So let's say, what would have happened if we had open sourced nuclear weapons to the world?
In a time of war, which we are arguably at that same point in time, it may have been, well, actually, would it have been catastrophic? So, United States, Germany, Japan, they all have the same technology at the same time. Would the United States have dropped the atomic bomb on Japan?
Very hard to say.
It's hard to theorize. I mean, do I think that it would have been used and catastrophic life loss? Yes, I do. I think that's the whole argument, though, that we were having before, that we have to have a catastrophic event to occur like Hiroshima and Nagasaki in order for us to then go, okay, we've seen what it does. Okay, hold off. Everyone, keep building them, test them, put them in your bunkers, don't use them.
Is that with AI, do you think?
I think
So as in
no is the answer.
No, as in we're not going to
No,
keep them in
because
the
you
bunker?
can't control it.
Ah, right,
Because
right.
we are in control. A nuke weapon won't fire itself.
Oh, I see. It's a different sort of problem, containment problem. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So, should AI be open sourced? Your answer is no or yes.
I don't know.
Like, how many people would abuse it if it was open source?
Well, it is open source, isn't it?
No, it depends. Like OpenAI, contrary to the name, is not. And if you've got investors, it's probably not.
Then what would we say? We've got a blended version of open source. It's sort of, but it's not.
As we saw in one of the
Clayton's.
videos, China relies heavily on open source to get ahead. So if you hold back open source, you're holding back China.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to probably win points here from China if they're watching. Because when I look at China and I look at what they're doing, I don't see the threat. I see the politics. That's what I see. Okay, so what am I talking about? So I see China brokering conversations with the Middle East. I see China brokering conversations with Russia. I see China trying to achieve elimination in the war in Ukraine. Maybe not the outcome that we Ukrainians would want, but certainly they're trying to broker a ceasefire or a cease to the war. So China, contrary to how we perceive China, and I understand why we perceive them the way they are, I see them as an equal threat to the Five Eyes nations, right? To America, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, right? It's politics. Politics is politics. You can't trust anyone in the political.
And in regional politics, they want to be the dominant force in Asia.
They do.
Regional hegemon.
The hegemony, yeah, but they do. So in my mind, I'm going, okay, so China is using open AI, open source AI. Okay, great. Yes, is that going to be a problem? No more than America is my answer. That's what I'm getting at. So, okay, don't open source. Think this through, right? And I apologize. I'm just thinking this through, right? This is a brainstorming session, so I might say something and go, "Whoa!" Like, please, it's brainstorming. Remember, brainstorming. You're not meant to judge. So, China, America, they're both developing AIs. You open source it. Okay, China has basically accessible information, accessible technology equivalent to whatever is on the open source platform. But, okay, you close it down. Now you've got two boxes that you can't see in. United States is going to keep developing. I'm just using an example as they're the most, I would say, quite powerful countries on opposing forces. So you go, okay, what is America doing? We don't know. Right now, in this current situation, what is the DoD, what is the Department of... You think about the industrial military complex that makes up the United States, and there's how many of them? 12 separate organizations, right? Wow. I mean, talk about overkill. But anyway, what are they doing in this field?
Nothing.
I'm pretty sure it's not nothing. I'm pretty sure they're doing something.
Officially, nothing.
Yeah, all right. And officially nothing. Officially, back in the 70s, what is it? The XR-71 didn't exist.
SR-71 Blackbird.
Beautiful plane. There, Elon, you're going to name your child something. Name him that.
And I think that Russia brought out the MiG-29 Foxbat just to say ours goes faster and higher and all that. Anyway, yeah. So that whole thing, even with the SR-71 and the MiG-29, that's a race. That was a race for supremacy of the high ground and the speed
of intelligence.
Yeah.
Yep.
So in any way where you pit a new technology with multiple sides, you create a race.
You do.
But does open source stop that kind of a race and turns it into more of a collab?
Not with the governments that we're talking about, no. I think the only time I ever saw a collaboration was over the International Space Station. Maybe there's more, but the biggest one that I can think of right now is the International Space Station. There was collaboration across the globe, but it seems to be a unique period in human history where, Russia was talking to America, we were brokering, United States was brokering some sort of peace treaties in the United Arab Emirates. There was there was a potential for calmness. I don't see the geopolitical landscape having that same potential calmness. Not right now. Not at this current stage of our human history.
All right.
Look, if an oracle told me far from the future that GPT-10 turned out to be a true AGI somehow, maybe just some very small new ideas, I would be like, okay, I can believe that. Not what I would have expected sitting here, would have said a new big idea, but I can believe that.
This prompting chain, if you extend it very far and then increase at scale the number of those interactions, like what kind of, if these things start getting integrated into human society and starts building on top of each other, I mean, like, I don't think we understand what that looks like. It's, like you said, it's been 6 days.
The thing that I am so excited about with this is not that it's a system that kind of goes off and does its own thing, but that it's this tool that humans are using in this feedback loop. Helpful for us for a bunch of reasons. We get to, learn more about trajectories through multiple iterations. But I am excited about a world where AI is an extension of human will and a amplifier of our abilities and this most useful tool yet created. And that is certainly how people are using it. And I mean, just look at Twitter, the results are amazing. People's self-reported happiness with getting to work with this are great. So yeah, maybe we never build AGI, but we just make humans super great. Still a huge win.
From that,
Yep.
are language models at their limit? Or do you think we need some extra special sauce like Sam Altman said?
My creative way of answering that is I don't think we've seen the full potential of the language models.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's more to come. And then they themselves, the language learning models themselves, will develop the speaker at source.
Well, the reason why I bring that up is because of this article which says, I'll just bring it up for you. It says, OpenAI's Sam Altman says giant AI models are over, but going small won't appease regulators. So this article's been making the news. Let's see if I can find one. A GPU crisis could be one reason why. So it goes on to say, giant models. I think we are at the end of the era where it's going to be these giant models will make them better in other ways. So,
No elaboration? What do you think he means by that?
What's it say here? Though Mr. Altman did not cite it directly, one major driver of the pivot from scaling is all you need is the exorbitant and unsustainable expense of training and running the powerful graphics processors needed for large language models. LLMs. ChatGPT, for instance, reportedly required more than 10,000 GPUs to train and demands even more resources to continually operate. NVIDIA dominates the GPU market with about 88% market share. It's probably why its stock price is going through the roof right now. So, I mean, the whole thing is a capitalist issue at the moment, capitalism issue, resources, that sort of thing.
But I guess
it might be a strategic call. Maybe he's saying it because...
to calm the ocean.
Yeah, perhaps.
I mean, you think about these big people at the top. They say things because they need to say things.
Yeah, you can take it with a grain of salt, pinch of salt.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he could be actually, super keen and excited and believes it's true, and therefore needs to get that out there in order to calm the ocean. And it's based purely on truth, right? He feels that there is we've hit the ceiling of what a resource can achieve, but it doesn't necessarily mean that, like, we are assuming by that statement that NVIDIA has exhausted all their technical capability, and engineering capability in order to optimize their chips for AI.
Yep. So I think, firstly, NVIDIA needs more competitors in that space to let capitalism do its thing. And I think Microsoft is stepping up and designing its own chip, and I think Tesla as well. So that they're soon going to have some serious competition. And when they develop when they develop the computer chips that can run dedicated tensor calculations, whatever they need to, and that's really truly optimized for AI learning, deep learning, that sort of thing, training of the AIs, then that would help ease that issue. But also, I mean, the models that are being trained, it's kind of like what happened with the CPU, with Fab, Intel versus Taiwan Semi, for example. So every time they reduce their fabrication process, let's say from, 45 nanometer down to 20 something nanometer, 22 down to 15 to whatever it was. Every time they do a fab die shrink, the cost of building a new fab goes up like exponentially. So it might cost $1 billion, and then it costs $5 billion, and then $10 billion, and then $20 billion for a fabrication plant. So even that is just a steep curve, simply because of the requirements. So
I get it.
Perhaps there is, some financial bottlenecks, but then, what are they going to do? They're going to use the existing AI to figure out ways around the bottlenecks, perhaps.
But that's exactly what I was trying to say. So, I believe, learning language models are, say, they're scraping, they're hitting the ceiling. Okay, have that optimized every possible vector, every possible variable that goes into optimization of a learning language model, around the technology piece, for example. Now I heard that there is human interaction also in that process as well. Is there a way to take that human out of that and create agents that act on behalf of humans to be able to optimize? Anyway, my point is that have they looked at every single part of that process and optimized it? Probably not.
Yeah, and also considering that they're kind of hitting up between the 1 trillion and possibly 5 trillion or higher interconnections between neurons. 1 trillion, right? And apparently the human brain has 100 trillion. So if a human brain can deal with 100 trillion connections, and it takes the energy of a small light bulb to run, but admittedly very slowly.
So biological system versus
so we know that
technology.
it is possible to run these things. Well, it is possible biologically to run them at a very low power and very slowly. And also, they're talking about large language models being at a limit, but I mean, we see that our biological networks are 100 times bigger. And I mean, but we do a lot more stuff, as in breathing, and there's a active conscious and subconscious, and we've got all these other things to deal with, not just the neural network. But I'm just saying that
we are complicated creatures.
Yeah, there's a lot of complicated stuff happening, but still, it's 100 times more. Um,
And I'd argue we're still not optimized.
oh, we're so far from optimal.
We need to sleep.
Yeah. My gosh.
My gosh.
Such a chore.
Imagine your computer said, that's it, mate. I've done my 12 hours. I need to sleep.
12.
Shut down.
Try 8. Try 6 hours.
Yeah, I wish.
So, yeah. So I'm sure that there's so much to optimize. Even the code. Apparently, an AI can optimize 25% of the code 2.5 times and increase around 25% of the code and make it around 2.5 times faster on average. That's just the code. And then you've got the actual machine code can be compiled better. For example, in the latest Python, it runs faster, I believe. And then you have the hardware itself that can be optimized. So there is a bit that can be done.
I think so. And I do believe that. Okay, so say they're all slight improvements, micro improvements. Many micro improvements add up, and we all know from a manufacturing perspective, we look at all that, right? We try and tweak every variable and control every variable within a certain range in order to optimize the output and reduce the defects. So I think we're at early stages of that process with regards to AI, and we're still in the manufacturing sense, we still use humans to optimize these processes. Once we start optimizing using the technology that we just optimized, like I never turn to a machine and ask the machine to optimize itself, but there's a potential now where that can happen. Optimize yourself. And then that may see further transformations, right, with regards to technology. So I get Sam's point, and I think he's right in communicating that, because I was talking to Roy before we started the show. I talk to parents about their children, and to me, I see more parents worried about artificial intelligence and its negative impacts on their children's lives. Now, children are going to university right now, started their first year now. Are they actually, at the end of the 4 years that they finish, facing a redundant role?
Yes, you were mentioning the auditor.
Yeah, so I go to the gym in the morning, even though you probably can't tell, but I do go in the gym in the morning, and I go and I get a coffee afterwards, and I speak to the coffee shop there at Carlingford, and they're lovely people. They've been there for like more than 20 years, and they've got young daughters, and the first daughter is in university, and she absolutely loves, she's got a finance degree, she loves the concept of being an auditor and wants to follow that as a career. And the mum turned around to me and said, but, is she going to, in 4 years' time when she finishes, is she actually going to have a job? And my advice, Roy and I were talking about this, is, does she love it? If she's passionate about it, she should follow it. You never know where that might lead. You never know where the organizations that exist in 4 years' time will still want the best human auditors working on human-related auditing problems, as opposed to using an AI or working in tandem with an AI, right? So not to sell themselves short, but follow your passion was my advice.
It's a brave new world now, isn't it?
Crazy. What advice would you have given the concerned mum or concerned dad, Roy? I'm sure you face these same questions. You were talking before how you read articles and you don't even get to the bottom of the article before you start having dystopian thoughts.
Existential crisis. Yeah. It is like with this, they call it the singularity because you can't see past it. It's just, I find I read a lot of stuff and I just have to take moments and just go, my gosh, if half the stuff that, they're talking about is going to come true, either way, it's just going to change a lot of things. the first thing they have to sort out is they have to sort out where people are going to earn a living from. As in, that's got to be sorted out as soon as possible, because it'll just be too disruptive, it'll be too sudden, and too many people will be caught off guard. Maybe it'll, self-regulate. Maybe people will wake up just as part of the natural, just people waking up to some crazy thing happening with the economy. I don't know. But right now, it feels like there's a pressing urgency for some sort of government, maybe government's the wrong word, just some sort of oversight onto insulating the workforce. Like I see people, like my kids are going to school. And the school system is exactly the same. The school system hasn't flinched. Maybe that's a good thing, but I'm just wondering, are we looking at the horizon and going, what's going to happen later on? It's just...
Maybe we just don't have the right people working on the problems or the potentials. Maybe we actually need a few jobs to be replaced by AIs to give these people the time to be able to sit down and work on these problems in order to solve them.
So are you saying that, just like we read in a few of these articles, that some major catastrophe has to happen before people start, questioning the reality and going, oh, this is happening, why? I mean, my wife said in her work, she works in the medical field, she goes, no one is talking about this at her work. But when she communicates with her UK counterparts, that's all they talk about is AI. It's very strange.
It is very strange. Maybe that's more around the individuals, and I'm not sure why that would be. I actually know, maybe that makes... So in my work, no one was talking about AI. This was before my previous employer. No one was talking about AI. But because I had a passion about AI and I had worked on a project and introduced some AI with object recognition and trying to keep people safe from distances and mobile plant, blah, 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 blah.
Forklift training, I remember that.
Yeah, right. So that meant that I'm passionate about it. So people that are passionate about things bring things to the table. And I remember having a strong agenda item back in 2017 and 2018 on AI and bringing it up. And I got the nod, but then businesses move on. Businesses forget, the CEO changes, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, where I'm going at is it, from a workplace perspective, it just needs a few, maybe one substantial player in the office to start talking about it and thinking about it and start implementing it in ways that people didn't imagine. Like the way I introduced it to the plant manager and how he could write a letter of recommendation for an employee. We actually used it to sort of draft up a letter for communication to employees that one of their close members passed away, right? So it would be the best way to write a letter to communicate such a tragic event. You never thought of that. And it came out with a really good answer. We tweaked it, but it meant a huge change in the way you would tackle tasks in the day. Is there one of me in other workplaces? Is there one of you, Roy, in other workplaces? If there are, I guarantee you it will be permeating those workplaces subtly.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so from a benefit perspective. But you ask initially, do we need to have a catastrophic event for things to be realized and safety protocols to be put in place? Just like the airline industry.
I was about to bring that up.
It kind of feels like, you kind of do need an event for then public safety there to be an uproar and then someone do something about it. But I think the responsibility is for people like yourself, myself, people listening to this show, to start thinking about those rules and regulations like you've prepared one earlier, because we need to act fast when it happens, and to start thinking about it when it's happened is too late. You kind of have to be in implementation mode as opposed to problem solving mode.
I think you might have hit the nail on the head here. So it's kind of like, maybe it's a bystander problem. You know what I mean by the bystander?
The smoke coming out of our building. Everyone else is dealing with it.
Yeah, there's someone else dealing with this. I don't have to deal with it. Like the bystander issue, apparently, like if someone's getting hurt on a train, everyone thinks that someone else is dealing with this issue. Oh, there'll be a person who's going to come and going to deal. It's not me. It's not my thing. The problem is this AI thing. There are no designated people to deal with this, because it hasn't happened before to this scale, to this in this way. So it could be a giant bystander effect across fields and fields and fields.
With the bystander effect, because we did the same thing in psychology, and it was using the example of a fire in a building.
You have to delegate.
Well, yes, but there is always a subtype of individual that will react. Like, it doesn't matter. Okay, you got a sample of 100 people, and don't quote me on this, but let's just, for theoretical mathematics, one in that 100 will react. They'll see the smoke and they go, I'm not waiting for anyone. I'm a leader in this. I'm making the call, right? And they make that call. They probably rush to that fire and try and put it out themselves. They're very proactive. The downside is it's not that same 100 that see the fire, right? So you might actually have, everyone has an arbitrary number assigned, and number one is the person that reacts, but only 5 through 55 are the ones that can see the fire, right? So that the one that you need to respond doesn't. So where am I coming to? We are the ones. So you, Roy, you're a 1, I'm a 1, Peter's a 1. There are people that we know in the world that are the ones, right? There's multiple, because there's more than just 100 people.
Yeah.
So we are the ones that have the responsibility to start this. That's what I'm trying to get at. If we fall into the loop of the bystander effect, then yeah, that could be a problem. That could be a big problem.
Yeah, I think that's a good food for thought.
Yeah, I think it is. And if I had my way, then I would switch straight away and focus on this as a problem for solving, in order to put those much needed regulations to ensure that AI is developed for the benefit of humanity, but with the safety rails that we all hear about.
For all mankind.
For all mankind, and without stifling progress.
For all humankind, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Correct. For all humankind.